So I threw away thousands of dollars worth of Zodiac products, and here's why. So growing up, I always loved my Zodiac. I felt like the traits really related to me and my personality. And not only that, I felt like a lot of times when I would meet people, like especially with dating, like the personalities would be what the Zodiac says they would be. Now, I didn't feel like, okay, if you're a Taurus, you have to be just like it says. Like I didn't live by it. Like, oh my God, like you have to be this way because this is your zodiac sign. It wasn't to that extreme, but a lot of times, especially with dating, I would be really intrigued because I would see a lot of the same patterns. So I was really into it and I was really proud of my sign, you know. It's to the point where I would have like a cross in most of my bios and then my zodiac, what was supposed to be my zodiac sign, next to it in the bio. That's how much I was into it. So anyway, in 2020, I was thinking of like a business I could start. I've always been like an entrepreneur. I always knew that I was going to work for myself, but you know, a lot of things are oversaturated. I never wanted to get into selling clothes because it is, you know, an area that is oversaturated. And I'm the kind of person I like to do what's trending, but not exactly the same as everyone else. You know, if I wear a skirt that's trending, I want a different pattern. I don't want the pattern I've seen on 50 people, if that makes sense. So there was this woman that was selling the sleepwear onesies. She was selling sleepwear onesies and she came out with a Zodiac collection. I had bought one for my birthday. And at first they were sold out and they were hard to get. So I almost didn't get it in time for my birthday. And I was looking for other stuff. And I was like, nobody else has any cute Zodiac stuff. So after my birthday, I came out with the idea of starting a Zodiac brand. I was talking to my sister about it and she was like, I think that'd be a good idea because it's something that's popular and not oversaturated. That's hard to find these days. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to hop on it and I'm going to come out with some customized clothes, not no tacky, you know, that little tacky stuff you find on these little sites with, you know, the little star, moon, like some actual cute clothes, the type of stuff that people are wearing. So I've always been very ambitious. So anytime I have an idea, something I know is a really good idea, I like to hop on it. So I went, got the business started, got an LLC. I started off with these pre-made onesie designs that nobody else was selling at the time that I got from this manufacturer in China. And I ended up also having them make some of my custom designs. I eventually came out with customized bikinis and things like that that I created from scratch. Well, I had somebody else make based off of my ideas. One thing I could say that I've learned through Christ is that, you know, good things take time. With the business, it wasn't doing bad, but I wasn't running it well. There's plenty of times where I just rushed and brought stuff just to have more to push out. And now looking back, I see that, you know, I should have taken my time more. First of all, I've learned that you don't need to jump into anything. You need to take your time, do your research, make sure you know the ins and outs, especially with merchandise. Like at one point I had so many bikinis, you know, I ordered way too many and I just rushed and I always wanted to get out all 12 designs and all of this and all of that. And I should have definitely taken my time more. But, you know, Christ has worked on me and I've learned that and I've grown. So I feel like now if I was to start a business, it will run very smoothly, not only because of me, but because I have God on my side. So anything he's called me to do, I'm going to succeed in. But I can definitely look back and say, you know, I jumped into it. But outside of that, it was doing well because I also was blogging about celebrities. I knew kind of how to promote my brand. And I, you know, had paid some celebrities and influencers to wear my stuff. I sent some stuff, had some people wear my stuff for free. So I had some celebrities and influencers wearing my brand. And, you know, Zodiacs were a popular thing. So people like, oh yeah, this is my sign, da da da. So people was with it. You know, I was going to pop-up shops and things like that. And it was going pretty good. So it got to about sometime in 2022 where I started having these intrusive thoughts about going to hell. And they were like so intrusive that they would like stop me. Like I remember one day, I started having this intrusive thought if I was going to hell. And I remember I was just standing in front of the couch because it was so intrusive to the point where it stopped me in my tracks. And I literally was just like this. And eventually it led me to be like, okay, I need to get my life right with God. Like I just came to that realization. But at the time when I first started having the intrusive thoughts, I was just thinking to myself, like when I would have them in the moment, I was thinking to myself, like, you know, nah, like I would shake it off, like, nah, I'm good. I live a pretty quiet life. I be home chilling. I don't be out doing anything crazy. At the time, I was a Christian, but I didn't really know the Bible and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm a pretty good person. Like, I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I'm God's favorite child, but I'm not out here doing nothing wrong. So I would just kind of like shake it off as it would come into my head. But eventually I ended up like deciding like I needed to ask God like if he was okay with the Zodiac thing. Now, mind you, the crazy thing is when I first started selling the Zodiac clothes and the whole brand in general, I remember praying to God like, I pray that you're going to be with me, that you'll bless my business and this and that moving forward, which is kind of crazy because I didn't pray consistently back then. You know, although I was a Christian, I wasn't raised in a household where it was like, oh, when you're doing things, include God. When you're doing this, include God. So I was the kind of person I prayed every once in a while. But for some reason, for this specific thing, I made sure I prayed and, included God in my business, which is crazy to ask for his blessing on a Zodiac brand, but that's where I was spiritually at that point. I ended up praying to him, and what I did at the time was after I prayed, I went to my church's like YouTube channel and I went to watch like whatever the last sermon was about. Mind y'all, I hadn't been to church in weeks. I wasn't going consistently and I wasn't watching online either. And the last sermon was about astrology. And y'all already know what the Bible says about astrology, so I already knew that that was a definite no from God because I had never heard another sermon from my church that was about astrology, and that last sermon just happened to be about astrology. I hadn't been to church in weeks. You know how sometimes you go to church and the message be right about you? It was about me. And the crazy thing is, like, now looking back, I really see how the enemy operates because it's funny how with Christians there's certain stuff we know to stay away from. Like I always stayed away from mediums and people like that, like mediums, tarot card readings. Like there's certain stuff I knew for sure was like, no, that's not of God. But the Zodiac thing is still astrology, and it started leading me down this like rabbit hole that I had always stayed away from. So around that time, like from 2020 until 2023, I had my ex-boyfriend living with me, and it was a very toxic relationship. Like it was very toxic, and he was the kind of person, he was very hard to get rid of. He had PTSD, he had a bad temper and things like that. So I was at the point where I was conflicted on like, am I gonna have to put this person out, da da da. So I was so conflicted with the relationship that there was this woman that was very popular on Instagram and stuff like that, and she posted tarot cards every day for like each zodiac, and a lot of times they would be pretty spot on. Like even with my family, friends, celebrities would repost them. Like it was very popular. And she also did readings, so it was to the point where I booked a reading with her. Mind you, I said I always stayed away from this stuff, but after looking at her zodiac cards with her daily readings and things like that, I got drawn in. That's how the enemy works. So anyway, what ended up happening was, so like she did talk about God. Like she would mention God. I wouldn't say it was every second, but she would mention God. So I just remember one day starting to think like, could she be a prophet from God? Mind you, I didn't read the Bible like that. I didn't really truly know what a prophet was, but I started thinking like, because everything was so accurate, because I've seen a lot of people say, oh, I don't understand how people be in the zodiacs, they be doing this, they be doing that. And I feel like it's important, instead of judging, to understand so that we can help those who are ignorant. And, it was spot on. So I started really feeling like this has to be from God, because it's spot on. Because there was a part of me that was conflicted, like, is this wrong? Like, always in the back of your head, the zodiac thing is kind of like a spacey part. Like, is this okay? Is this considered not okay? This and that. It's always been like that. But I started really thinking, okay, this has to be from God because it's so accurate. So I ended up booking a reading with her. Now, mind you, at the time, I didn't, like I said, I didn't grow up really feeling like, oh, this is the same God in the Bible. He's going to answer you if you pray to him. So I was so conflicted. Instead of me praying to God, I'm like, oh, let me do one of her readings. They're spot on. So basically, I ended up doing a reading with her, and she basically like was telling me what was going on. Now, mind you, the enemy can't read our thoughts, but he watches us. So it's not as if the devil doesn't know what's currently going on. You get me? So she basically told me about what's going on, and she basically said that God is waiting for you to make a decision. Like, basically, like, God's waiting for you to make a decision, and then basically he's going to move off of whatever decision you make. So that left me feeling more conflicted, because I felt like, oh, if I continue on with this relationship, like, am I not going to prosper? Because I already feel like this relationship is going to hold me back and things like that. So it made me really conflicted, because this was a hard person to get rid of, and I already was conflicted. So it basically just left me feeling like that. So back to me getting my no on the zodiac thing, I basically told God, because the thing is, I was taught about Jesus when I was young, and I genuinely did love God. It was never my intentions to do anything, like to intentionally go against him. Although there was moments where I wasn't sure. So, I prayed like, hey, I apologize. Like, I'm willing to, completely turn away from this business for you, But I was like, God, like this, like I have a lot of stuff in here. This costs money. Like, I need to sell the remainder of this stuff. Like, it's funny how we look back at times and we're like, thank God for his mercy and his grace, because we be playing in his face. Like, I really was playing in God's face. I was like, I know you don't like this, but I'm going to sell this stuff. And when I'm done selling it, then I'll be completely done. So I kept the stuff. And what ended up happening was something was going on with the AC to where, and it's important to note that all of the Zodiac merch I had in like bins. Like, of course, they weren't in their individual packaging, but some of them were still like in the box. Some of them, I had like this huge bin that had a lot of the bikinis in it. And I had put that stuff like in my closet, like in a corner in my closet. They were specifically that stuff. So after I put that stuff in my closet, that's when the carpets got soaked in the house. And at first it was every closet. So the guy came, it was my closet. It was a mess because I had so much stuff in there. And the crazy thing is, we didn't notice at first because I don't have a walk-in closet. So I didn't notice it was wet at first. And then he's like, oh, I have to check all the closets in the house. So it was like every closet in the house, we had to pull out all of this stuff. So what ended up happening was, got done with that. That was a thing, the carpet had to be pulled up, whatever. Stuff had to be thrown away. And what ended up happening was, a couple months later, it happened again. Well, when it happened again, it was only my closet. But this time around, not only was it my closet, but it was gnats. I had like a bunch of gnats in the house. I kept feeling like something was biting me, but I couldn't see it. And I had a bunch of gnats because, again, I don't have a walk-in closet and I don't have the best nose. So I didn't know at first that the closet floor was wet. So who knows? It could have been three days. Like, I don't always go in the closet. It just depends on what I'm doing or what I'm getting, because not all of my stuff is in the closet. So, and the reason I note the gnat thing is because I literally described it like a plague. Forever to get rid of them, and they're so annoying, and there's like, they just always are flying in your face. It's so bad. Like, oh my God, if I even see one, I'm going crazy. I was in there using whole bottles of spray stuff. Insane. Anyway, so after that second time, I remember not long after, there was a day that I woke up. I'm telling you guys, I woke up literally, sat up in my bed, and looked at the closet. And I remember the first thought in my head was, you need to get rid of this stuff. Like, I woke up with a knowing that I had to get rid of this stuff. I remember looking, because one of the bikinis was sticking out of the top box. I remember looking straight at that and waking up literally looking straight at that with a definite knowing. And like, the first thought was, you need to get rid of that stuff. And it was definite. Like, I knew it wasn't just like, oh, a thought, oh, it was definite. So I'm sitting there, thinking about it. And I ended up calling somebody I used to work with. She's a minister at her church. And I was telling her about it. And she said, she used the word obedience. Because honestly, you know something's from God when there's a peace with it. So it's not that I was really, like, I had peace. But then it was like the logical part of me that was just like, are you really going to throw this away? So, I called her, and she was just like, she used the word obedience, and that made me think of like the closet flooding and all of this stuff, because I'm like, okay. And before, I never connected that, but in that moment I connected the stuff that had been going on in the house. And then I was like, so when you say the word obedience, it makes me think, okay, if I don't do this, now I'm in disobedience, is my whole house gonna burn down? And that was my thought. I was like, look, I don't need nothing else happening, okay? I don't need nothing else happening. I'm not trying to, have God strike me down. So I'm like, okay. So I got rid of the stuff, and it was a lot of stuff, and I actually recorded it. I'm going to add that clip in. And I only recorded it because it was so crazy in that moment. I'm like, I feel like nobody would ever believe this. I felt like in this moment, like, people are going to think I'm really loony. And I really just threw that stuff away. But it was a peace. It wasn't like I was like, oh my God, like da. Like, mind you, if the house had caught on fire or something like that happened and stuff, something happened to my stuff, I'd be, woe is me, all upset, this and that. But I really was just like at peace with the situation. I got rid of all the stuff. That's when God really started working on me, and I started learning his word and learning his truth. And I went into like my wilderness season. I was just spending so much time learning him, learning his word, and just understanding and gaining wisdom and knowledge. And, just repenting for the wrong I had done. And coming to that understanding, it really made me realize that a lot of Christians really are ignorant and deceived, because I know that at one point I thought my lifestyle was okay, and I still was a Christian. I was baptized in either 2018, 2019, and my whole life I had believed Jesus. I had received it when I had heard about him. I never doubted he was real. I really did. That's why I don't judge other people, because I understand what it's like to genuinely think that certain things are okay, and just to not really know and understand who God is or have a relationship with him. And it made me really realize that a lot of Christians, that's what they're missing, the relationship. That's why now when I teach my son, I teach him about having a relationship with God. I teach him about God's character and his truth, and I have him read his word and him listen to sermons so he can really understand God. Does that mean his life is going to be perfect? No. But if you have that foundation, it makes a difference. I just realized, not even just from my situation, but from listening to testimonies, from listening to others in general, that a lot of people just are missing that personal relationship. That's the biggest thing. I didn't know about having a personal relationship with him. I wasn't reading his word. So I was just living a sinful life and not realizing that the devil had me under his thumb. Of course, I can't talk about this topic without adding in some scriptures. So I did put down some scriptures that I am going to bring in. So Deuteronomy 18, I think it's 18 through 13, I wrote, let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Now, I looked up the definition of divination, practices of seeking knowledge of the future or unknown by supernatural means. Now, of course, y'all know I did that because I sought counsel with someone else. Now, Isaiah 47:13 through 15, it says, all the counsel you have received has only worn you out. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month. Let them save you from what is coming upon you. Surely they are like stubble. The fire will burn them up. They cannot even save themselves from the power of the flame. These are not coals for warmth. This is not a fire to sit by. This is all they are to you. These you have dealt with and labored with since childhood. All of them go in their error. There is not one of them who can save you. Daniel 2. Now, this is when King Nebuchadnezzar needed somebody to interpret his dream. And I think I went all the way to verse 11. So the king summoned magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. Then the astrologers answered the king, may the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it. The king replied to the astrologers, this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses burned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me the gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. Once more they replied, let the king tell his servants the dream and we will interpret it. Then the king answered, I am certain that you are trying to gain time because you realize that this is not what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. The astrologers answered the king, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. You know what's crazy? They literally said out of their own mouths that this is a God thing. This is a God thing. We cannot, because remember, the enemy, he cannot read your mind. This is a God thing. So they even admitted nobody but God can do this. And yes, a man of God interpreted it, but it was because of God. So they even admitted themselves, we cannot read your mind. We don't know. You haven't spoken it out. So there's nothing we can do. Crazy, right? Daniel 2:27, Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, or musician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come. The Bible flat out says no to astrology. Zodiac falls in that. So it's a no. I looked up the definition of zodiac signs. Zodiac signs in astrology are the 12 divisions of ecliptic representing different constellations and associated with specific periods of the year, each said to influence personality traits. So there you have it. It's no. And I'm not here to tell you that if you're a Christian and you believe in astrology to stop. My answer is take it to God. But I have gotten my answer, and I'm not playing with God. It clearly says no, and you can ask God for yourself. But at the end of the day, if you really read the Bible, which is the problem, a lot of us don't know God's word. We really are genuinely Christians, but we don't know God's word. Stay away from it. He's not playing about it. You have to remember that when you're claiming, okay, I'm this zodiac, you're not only claiming the positive traits, you're claiming the negative traits. So you're coming into agreement with that. You're speaking that. So I looked up traits of like a zodiac. So I looked up Gemini. So some of the positive traits are intellectual, curiosity, adaptability, communicative, social, playful, outgoing, adventurous. But then the negative traits, indecisiveness, restlessness, impulsivity, anxiety, difficulty with long-term commitment. So when you're saying I'm a Gemini, you're taking on all of these things. You're speaking all of these things. I'm everything that this says. And we know about the power of the tongue and what you say, and it's taken away from God and his glory, because instead of you saying I'm a child of God, I'm a Christian, you run around like, oh yeah, you know, that's just because I'm a Scorpio, because I'm this, I'm that. Does that sound like God? Because God is a jealous God. And if you look at the symbols of the zodiacs, like yes, some of them are animals, but they look very, very demonic. I have one more scripture. So it says Isaiah 8:19. When someone tells you to consult mediums and spiritualists who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? Which goes back to what I said. When I was having trouble in my relationship, my first thought wasn't let me go to God, because I didn't feel like he was going to answer. Like, yes, I felt like, you know, there's a God, he has control. That's why I prayed to him about my business. But I didn't feel like he was going to answer me about my relationship problem. It wasn't even a thought to be like, oh, let me ask God, he gonna help me with this situation, he gonna answer me this and that. Like, this stuff stops us from even going to God and consulting him. It literally blocks us. We feel like, oh, I gotta go to this medium, and then we start to make these people idols, because oh yeah, she be spot on, I gotta, anything she say, if she tell me to bring a piece of my hair, I'm gonna do it. Crazy, right? To not even consult on your own God like we consult. And we looking at these daily readings instead of coming to God first thing in the morning. And a lot of times we're drawn to stuff to gain wisdom and answers. When I used to really like date, I really used to be into the zodiacs because I want to see, are we gonna mesh? How might this end? And I was just so into it. I was so intrigued. And the thing is, God is everywhere. He is omnipresent. He is all-knowing. He has all the wisdom. He has all the power. He can reveal to you what a person is like. If you give him time, he don't always answer in the ways that we want or in our timing or how we want, but his ways are better. It's better to go to the real source who has your best interest at heart than a pretender. And guys, this is the craziest part about this whole thing. The woman who I did the reading with, her name used to be called Give Me Morgan or something like that. And I went to look up her page because I was going to look at the cards, because, you know, obviously, like, since I've turned away from this stuff, I just completely stay away from it. I stay away from discussions. People will be like, oh, what's your zodiac? I'll be like, oh, I don't know. I don't be into that. But I stay away from all of that. So I was looking for her page. I couldn't find her page, but I was like, I mean, I wasn't surprised I couldn't find her page because, you know, I hadn't been into that stuff. I'm not on most of my old social media pages. So I'm like, I can't find like none of these like cards and stuff. It was frustrating me too, because I'm like, I don't want to be looking this stuff up too much and then it's coming up on my timeline and I'm gonna have to do a whole cleanse. But I eventually found her Instagram, and the crazy thing is, the same year, 2023, when I threw away all of my zodiac stuff, she was baptized. Now she speaks about God's word and his truth. And it is insane. I was not expecting to find that, and I'm so happy to know that she came to the truth. And it's not easy when you had that kind of influence. Like I said, her cards were popping. They were popping. Her readings, you're making money. You're sold out. You're booked. You have so many people in your life. Celebrities is reposting your stuff. It's not easy to have that kind of influence and power and to turn away. But I'm so thankful on how God works. And for me to make this video and then find this, I was like, God, you are so amazing. You are so amazing. But anyway, that's the conclusion to my video, my testimony about why I do away my Zodiac stuff, why I do not deal with that stuff. I don't play about having stuff in my house, no accursed things in my house. I just don't play with God. Now that I know the truth, I have came to the truth. And that's just what it is. If you are still questioning whether or not it's right, pray to God just like I did. That's why I always tell people, go to the source. We're not going to keep talking about it because I know that God told me no. I know what he told me, so I don't care what nobody says. But yeah, welcome to my page. This is not a page where I'm coming up here to act like I'm some perfect person or this and that. I'm just talking about real relatable Christian topics, real things that's going on. And that's just what it is. So if you guys want to follow more of my content, I also have a page called Women Redeemed by Christ where we post testimonies about how women have been redeemed by Christ. Go check that out. But if you guys want more of this content, please follow. Have a great day. Bye.